So we have completed the eutrophication part. Now let's begin with the coral reef. So what are coral reef? These are the submarine morphological creatures with organic calcium structure. So coral reefs are majorly composed of calcium. They are a kind of morphological creatures. These are very beautiful, natural and wonder and among the world's oldest, most diverse and most productive ecosystem. So which is the world's most diverse and productive ecosystem? It is nothing but the coral reef. In terms of biodiversity, they are the marine equivalents of tropical rainforest. So how much diverse this tropical rainforest is? Similar kind of diversity is present in marine coral reef. So there is a mutualistic relationship. They represent the mutualistic relationship between coral animal and blue-green algae called zooxanthellae. So it's a mutual relationship between these two creatures. Corals obtain part of their livelihood from seawater and remainder comes from the algae that lives on the coral tissue. So these two components are helping in their livelihood, one being the seawater and the other one being the algae which lives on them. So coral provides algae with a protected environment and compound they need for photosynthesis. So it's like a mutual symbiotic relationship. Corals, they provide the protected environment and also the compound for photosynthesis to algae. In return, the algae produce oxygen and help the coral to remove the waste. Most importantly, zooxanthellae, that is the algae, supply the corals with, it gives them food. For example, coral gives them shelter and compounds needed for photosynthesis. In return, the algae, that is zooxanthellae, it gives the coral food, glucose, glycerol and amino acid, which are the products of photosynthesis. Corals live in huge colonies and their body is attached to one another. When corals die, the other corals grow on the dead calcareous debris. So the dead corals, it became the nutrient for further coral to grow, which is good. The coral reef form along coast, island or sea mountain and wind provide the foundation. So it forms along the coast or island or even the sea mountains. So corals growth depend upon the calcium carbonate obtained from the sea. As we already saw, calcium is very much important for coral growth. Now what is the ideal condition for their growth? It needs temperature ranging between 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, limited to tropical belt. So in case of tropical belt, this much of temperature is needed. Whereas in case of the temperature, if it falls below 18 degrees Celsius or if it increases above the 33 degrees Celsius, then though eventually corals will die. So the ideal condition is 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. Now, salinity. Corals need saline water. Average salinity of 27 to 40 ppm, parts per million, is needed. So it has to be saline with the ppm ranging between 27 to 40. The temperature ranges 25 to 30. Salinity ranges 27 to 40. And it also needs shallow water less than 60 to 65 meter. And it needs submarine platform and it needs sediment free and clear water. Water which is disturbed by currents and waves is beneficial and it ensures supply of oxygen. So oxygen is being supplied by ocean currents. Now what are the benefits? Is there some benefits of reef coral to mankind? Yes, it is. Coral provide sites for diverse variety of plants and animals. So various kinds of plants and animals live or survive there. It is storehouse of living resources like fish. So it's called a storehouse of living resource. Reef fish accounts for about 50% of the worldwide fish catch. So this area is very good for fishing. 50% of reef fish are caught from this particular place, and they are also good source of tourism revenue because of their beautiful nature. Tourists are being attracted to visit that place. Coral reef help moderate atmospheric temperature by removing carbon dioxide from atmosphere. So it will absorb the carbon dioxide. Coral reef protect coastline from wave erosion. So it also protects the coastline. These are some of the benefits of corals to mankind. It is diverse site for plants and animals, and it's a storehouse of living resource. It's a tourist spot, and it also helps in absorbing the carbon dioxide and also protects the coastline. What are the type of reef? First type being the fringing reef. Fringing reef. A reef grows out from the land. For example, this is the land, and particular reef grows out from it and is connected to it. So this is how it's connected. The fringing reef develop along the island and the continental margin. So if it is an island, it will develop along, and if it's a continent, it will develop along with it. So it's mostly attached or connected to it. Example, Shakau Island in New Hebrides and South Florida Reef. Except Lakshadweep, which is atoll, all other reef in India are fringing reefs. So Shakau Island in New Hebrides, South Florida Reef, and then these are some of the fringing reef example. So mostly we have fringing reef in India except the Lakshadweep one. Then the next type is called barrier reef. A reef which is separated from the land by a lagoon. So if it is separated from the land by a lagoon, part of sea which is cut off from the rest of the sea. For example, this is sea, and particular thing, lagoon, is separated from it. And here the coral reefs are present. So they are separated by this particular lagoon, which is called barrier reef. So these are considered the largest and the highest and the widest reef. Example, Great Barrier Reef, Australia. Barrier is something, here lagoon will be there, here ocean will be there, and this is how the reefs are attached, called barrier reef. Then the next type is atoll reef. It is formed away from coast in deep water, generally elliptical or circular. So this is the coast, and here we have water. So in deep water the atoll reef are formed. Here it is elliptical in shape, as it uses the top of sea mountain to grow. It is in this particular elliptical or circular shape. Encloses a lagoon in the center. Example, Fiji atoll, Suadivo in Maldives, and Funafuti atoll of Ellis, Lakshadweep. So we saw in the first type that except Lakshadweep, all other coral reef in India are that particular fringe reef. So what is that Lakshadweep reef called? It's this atoll reef. Now the next type is called patch reef. Patch reef or isolated outcropping, that is patches of coral that are in close proximity to each other but are physically separated by sand ring. So they are in close proximity to each other, but they are physically separated by sand rings. They are typically found in shallow lagoon with a larger collective reef or atoll. So these are the patch reef. Patch reef are something which are which seem to be in patches, but they are in close proximity. Still, they are separated by this sand ring. Example common found in Caribbean island, Bahamas, Pacific island. So in most of the ocean, this patch reefs are present. Patchy coral is present in the intertidal areas of central west coast of India. So these are 4 types of coral reef. The next topic is about the coral bleaching. So this is the natural disturbance which cause damage to coral reef. It includes violent storm, flooding, high and low temperature extreme, El Nino, southern oscillation, that is ENSO event, then subaerial exposure, predatory outbreak and epizootic. So these are some of the natural disturbance which affects or causes the coral bleaching. Coral reef bleaching is a common stress response of coral to disturbance mentioned above. So because of which they lose their color. Bleaching occurs when the density of zooxanthellae, that is the algae, decline and the concentration of photosynthetic pigment within the zooxanthellae fall. Either their photosynthetic ability reduces or the algae population itself reduces. If the stress causing bleaching is not too severe and if it decreases in time, the affected coral usually regain their symbiotic algae within several weeks or few months. If it is not so severe, they will come back to their original state sooner. If zooxanthellae loss is prolonged, that is, if the stress continues and depleted, zooxanthellae population do not recover. So if it is for a short term or minimal, it will recover instantly, whereas in case if it is prolonged, it will not recover and eventually the coral host will die. So this is what coral bleaching means. Now what are the causes of coral bleaching? What will happen because of this? Increase in ocean temperature due to climate change is causing coral bleach. So temperature will increase and this will affect the species in water. Then run of water and polluted water can dilute ocean water and bleach near shore coral. So these particular runoff and polluted water, it will bleach them. So what are the so we are looking at the causes, right? Temperature is one of the cause and the polluted or runoff water is other cause. Then overexposure to sunlight and irradiance can bleach shallow coral. So overexposure to sunlight is also an important factor. Then extreme low tide causes coral get exposed to air and bleach. So extreme low tide, it is also an important cause. Extreme low tide. So these are some of the causes of coral bleaching. Then coral reef distribution in the world. So here we can find India here. Found in more than 100 countries. Yes, we can witness it here itself. Then more reefs are located between the tropics, in the Pacific and in the Indian Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, Red Sea, then Persian Gulf. These are the various oceans where coral reef is found abundantly. Corals are also found in the tropics such as Florida and southern Japan. So it's found in Florida and also in southern Japan. Coral reef distribution in India. So there are a very few coral reef in India due to subtropical climatic condition. We have subtropical climate, so we have very less coral reef. The major coral reef in India include Park Bay, Gulf of Mannar, Gulf of Kutch, Andaman and Nicobar Island, and then Lakshadweep Island. So these are the places where coral reefs are present in India. So these are the places. This is the diagrammatic representation. We have hard corals and these are the places we can witness the corals in India. Now measures taken by the government to protect the coral reef. What are the measures? First one, BioRock technology. ISSI, Zoological Survey of India, is trying to restore coral reef in Gulf of Kutch by using biorock or mineral acceleration technology to grow solid limestone rock structure in the sea. This is biorock technology. So is that a site? It is trying to restore the coral reef in this particular region in Gujarat. How? By using biorock or mineral acceleration technology. What is done in this technology? It will grow limestone rock and it will provide the needed minerals and nutrient to corals for their growth. In this technology, steel structure to which coral fragment are fixed are lowered into seabed. Low voltage and safe electric current are passed to the structure using a power source. Then dissolved mineral crystallize on steel structure, resulting in production of calcium carbonate or white limestone structure. Then composition is similar to that of natural coral reef. So these are basically kind of artificial way of making the coral reef. Here the steel structure is being sent inside the seabed and we will pass the electric current, and then these minerals, it will crystallize on that particular rock and it will lead to formation of limestone rock or calcium carbonate structure. So this is how, here we have the diagram. Support tree is being produced. So the next initiative is Global Coral Reef Research and Development Accelerator Platform. It is a G20 initiative aimed at creating a global research and development program to advance research, innovative and build all facets of coral reef conservation, restoration and adaptation. So this is for coral reef conservation under G20 initiative. Then under National Coastal Mission, steps taken to protect and sustain coral reef in India, National Coastal Mission. Then Palau is the first country to ban reef toxic sunscreen. It's a very good measure. Reef toxic sunscreens are banned in Palau. Sunscreen absorbs UV radiation and makes coral susceptible to bleaching. So that's all in coral reef. Now the next topic is mangroves. Mangroves are various large extensive type of trees up to medium height and shrubs that grow in saline coastal sediment habitat in the tropic and subtropic, mainly between the latitude 25 degree north to 25 degree south. So mangroves are the trees which are medium in height and they grow in saline coastal sediment. This is important, and this is the particular latitude they can grow well. Mangroves are salt tolerant tree, that is halophyte. They can tolerate salt. Adapted to live in harsh coastal conditions, they contain a complex salt filtration system and a complex root system. So they have salt filtration system. That is how they survive in salty water. And their roots are also complex. To cope with salt water immersion wave action, they are adapted to low oxygen condition, that is anoxic condition of waterlogged bed. Now let us discuss about the characteristics of mangroves. So first characteristic of mangroves are the evergreen land plants growing on the sheltered shore like Delta, Ishwari, Base, Creek and Barrier Island. So they are evergreen and they grow on sheltered shore. Then physiological adaptation to salinity, stress and waterlogged anaerobic mud. So there is a physiological adaptation to salinity, stress and to waterlogged anaerobic mud. So they are adaptable to salt and anaerobic mud also. Need abundant sunlight. Has ability to absorb fresh water from saline water source. So they need abundant sunlight. This is the next characteristic. And then nematophores. These are the blind roots. They have special root like prop root, nematophore, stilt root, which help to impede water flow and stabilize the coastal shore. They act as breeding ground for fish. Moderates monsoonal tidal flood, reduces inundation of coastal lowland, then prevent coastal soil erosion, protects coastal land from tsunami, hurricane, flood, etc. Enhances natural recycling of nutrients. So the next important characteristics are they have pneumatophores, that is blind root, which will impede water flow. Then it is helpful for fish breeding. Then it will moderate the monsoonal tide, prevent soil erosion, protect the coast from tsunami. It will enhance natural recycling nutrient. Then it will support the numerous flora, fauna and avifauna. It can we can even see edge effect here. Then it will supply the raw material like wood, medicinal plant and edible plant, recreation and tourist attractive. So these are some of the characteristics of mangrove. Now, is there some threat from human interference to mangrove? Yes, approximately 35% of the mangrove area was lost during the last several decades of 20th century. We lost more than 35% mangroves. The UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, and Hamilton 2013 estimate the shrimp farming causes approximately a quarter of the destruction of mangrove forest. So UNEP along with Hamilton, they have estimated that shrimp farming, it will cause approximately quarter of the destruction of mangrove forest. So shrimps are kind of fish-like thing, similar to prawn, that are being cultivated and they are sold for consumption. So this is affecting the mangroves. Likewise, in 2010 update of WMA, that is World Mangrove Atlas, it indicated a fifth of the world's mangrove ecosystem have been lost in 1980. So 1/5 of this particular mangroves are lost in 1980s as per WMA. They are also destroyed for conversion of area for agri purpose. So people have destroyed the mangroves for agri practice, fuel fodder, mining, oil spill, aquaculture, that is like shrimp farming, use of fertilizer industry, fertilizer for industrial purpose, etc. So these are some of the mangrove growing areas in India like Sundarbans, Mahanadi, then Gujarat, Ratnagiri, Krishna Godavari, Goa mangrove, Kaveri deltaic mangrove, Andaman and Nicobar islands of mangrove. So these are various important mangrove sites in India. So we'll now begin with the next topic, which is wetland ecosystem. Water wetlands. It is a land area that is saturated with water. Wet is water and land is land area. Land area saturated with water is wetland, either permanently or seasonally, such that it takes on the characteristic of distinct ecosystem. So whenever we talk about wetland, instantly we'll remember the Ramsar Convention, which is made for the wetland conservation, right? So what is Ramsar Convention definition? Ramsar Convention says that wetlands are the areas of marsh, fen, peatland or water, whether natural or artificial, permanent or temporary, with water that is static or flowing, fresh, brackish or salt, including areas of marine water, the depth of which at low tide does not exceed 6 meters. So wetlands, these are the areas of all these water content area like marshes, fen, etc. Either they can be either natural or artificial also. It can be temporary or permanent also. The water can be either static or flowing. It can be fresh or brackish or even salt. And it will even include marine water also. Whereas the only condition is the low tide should not exceed 6 meter. This is the Ramsar definition. Now, what is this wetland? It is an intermediate stage between the deep water habitats and terrestrial habitat. Between the deep water and terrestrial area, the intermediate stage is called wetland. Habitat experience periodic flooding from adjacent deep water habitat, and plants and animals are adapted to shallow flooding. So often this particular place will be flooded because we have deep water nearby. For example, littoral lake. We have this littoral lake, floodplain, marshy, then swampy area, bogs, fens, and mangroves. So even mangroves come under the example for wetlands. So this is a particular, this is how wetland works. So contaminants are filtered, then it will provide critical wildlife habitat, then cleaner water outflow. Now, what are the characteristics of wetland? They are covered by water or has waterlogged soil for at least 7 days during the growing season. So, we will have waterlogged soil. The soil will be waterlogged for at least 7 days. Then, adapted plant life, hydrophytes. So, based on that water content, the plant life were adapted. Then hydric soil, not enough oxygen for some plants. So hydric soil is also an important factor. Even if there is not enough oxygen, it will grow. Then wetland classification. So they are classified into two types. They are inland wetland and coastal wetland. Inland wetlands, example, lakes are pond, oxbow lake, waterlogged area, seasonal wetland, swamp or marshes. Whereas in case of coastal wetland, we have estuary, lagoons, creeks, backwaters and bays. These are some of the examples of coastal wetland. And inland wetlands are given on the left side. Now, what is the functions of wetland? Why we need wetland and what are the functions? First one, functions of wetland. They are used as a habitat for variety of flora and fauna, and it filters sediment and nutrients from surface water. It is helpful in nutrient recycling, water purification, food mitigation, groundwater recharge, controlling rate of runoff in urban area, buffer shoreline against erosion, stabilization of local climate, tourism, recreation and cultural heritage. So these are the various uses or functions of wetland. Now, reasons. So what are the reasons? Conversion of land for agri, then overgrazing, then removal of sand from bed, aquaculture, habitat destruction in deforestation, pollution, domestic waste, agri runoff, industrial effluence, climate change. So these are the various reasons for their depletion of the wetlands. Overgrazing, removal of sand, pollution, domestic waste, etc. So what are the mitigation measures? How can we reduce their impact? Proper survey and demarcation is needed. Then protection process of natural regeneration, then artificial regeneration, afforestation, weed control, wildlife conservation, removal of encroachment, eutrophication abatement, environmental awareness. So these are some of the mitigation measures needed for wetland conservation. Now, what are the Ramsar Convention on wetland? The Ramsar Convention on wetland of international importance, especially as waterfowl habitat, is an international treaty for conservation and sustainable use of wetland. As we already discussed, Ramsar Convention or for the conservation and sustainable use of wetland. It is named after the city of Ramsar. It is a city in Iran, where convention was signed in 1971 itself in the February month. Ramsar philosophy is the wise use of wetland. There were over 2,300 Ramsar sites on the territories of 170 Ramsar contracting parties across the world. So there were 170 parties and more than 2,300 Ramsar sites. At the time of joining the convention, each country contracting party undertake to designate at least one wetland site for inclusion in the list of wetland for international importance. So every party has to designate one site as Ramsar wetland site to be included in the list. India is also a party to the convention, and currently we have, it's not 42, the updated list is 75. In India currently we have 75 Ramsar sites. 11 are being added recently, which includes 75 Ramsar sites. So we can see their list later. Now we'll look at this concept called Montrac's record. It is a register of wetland sites on the list of wetland of international importance where changes in ecological character have occurred. So if there is some ecological character which have changed over the years, then it will be included in the register called Montrac's record, are occurring, are likely to occur as a result of technological development, pollution or other human interface. Some ecological change have happened, then it is recorded in Montrac's. It is maintained as part of Ramsar site, Ramsar list. Currently 2 wetlands of India are in Montrac's record. What are they? One is Keoladeo National Park and other one being Loktak Lake. Initially we had the Chilika Lake also in the list, but it was removed after maintaining it properly. Keoladeo and Loktak are currently in that list. It is in Rajasthan and this particular lake is in Manipur. Now the last topic about wetland is about the rules, Wetland Conservation and Management Rules 2017. So we'll look at what are the provisions in that rule. Key provisions are decentralization, the power having given to the state government so that protection and conservation work can be done at local level. So they have basically decentralized it. Next, states and union territory have been given the responsibility for wetland management by setting up of state and union territory wetland authority, that is SWAS. They also have provision for SWAS, state and union territory wetland authority. Now prohibited activities. So what are the things which are prohibited? First one, conversion of wetland for non-wetland use. We should not convert the wetland for any other purpose. Then setting up of any industry and expansion of existing industry. We should not destroy the wetland for industrial purpose. Then solid waste dumping in the wetland should not happen. Discharge of untreated waste and effluent from industry should also be stopped from the industry, city, town, village and other human settlement. So these are some of the provisions and prohibited activities given under the 2017 rules. So we are done with the wetland part. Thank you.